Hello and welcome to Business Incorporated live on Channels Television. We have a packed show for you today. For what's coming up now, we see the Dangote Petroleum Refinery says it has reduced the ex-depot price of its premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, 899 naira 50 kobo per litre. I'll also get reactions to the 2025 budget, analyze assumptions and some of the revenue targets. And in Egypt, see, Collider, a Chinese manufacturer of fabrics and home textiles, is set to invest about $30 million in the Suez Canal Economic Zone. That's the SCZ zone. We'll unpack all of that for you, but let's get a check on the markets now. Let's see what's playing out with gold. Gold prices took a wild ride today. After dipping to a month low, they suddenly jumped over 1% thanks to some, short covering traders, on the edge are waiting for key U.S. data like GDP and jobless claims. This data will give them a better idea of what the Fed might do with interest rates. And you see palladium there, $912, down 0.1%. Platinum on the flip side, that's up 0.6%. Spot silver down $29.44, and we see gold there shining 0.8% up and a big 1.2% up. That's for the gold futures. Remember how the Fed recently cut rates? Well, they hinted that they might not cut as much as expected in 2025. This spooked gold investors a bit as higher interest rates make gold, less appealing. But today things seem to be stabilizing with gold up and other precious metals. Just silver, on the flip side, down. But majority of the metals are up, about 3 versus 2. To the oil market now, oil prices are taking a dip this morning. Yesterday, they were looking good after the Fed cut interest rates, and we saw a drop in U.S. crude oil stockpiles. But the good times, it didn't last long there, but we see WTI U.S., that's U.S. grade, still holding to that $70.56 level. Marginally down about 0.03% this afternoon. Brent crude, $73.35 a barrel, also down marginally, 0.07%. So, still about higher interest rates. And we know higher interest rates, that will slow down the economy and reduce demand for fuel, which in turn impacts also. While we saw some gains yesterday, today's prices are reflecting this more cautious outlook. That's from the U.S. Fed. I will see here, Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reduced the price of its premium motor spirit to 899 naira 50 kobo per litre, just in time for the holiday season. This marks a significant drop from the previous price of about 917 naira, offering relief to Nigerians grappling with high transport costs. The Dangote Group assures Nigerians of its commitment to providing affordable, high-quality petroleum products while reducing reliance on substandard imports. The president of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, ACCI, Mr. Emeka Obegolu, has urged the FCT administration to prioritize the revival of the Duyard Industrial Hub in the Federal Capital Territory. Speaking at a media parley, Mr. Obegolu described the poor infrastructure, unreliable power supply and security lapses, which he says has served as forced many businesses to shut down. He called on the government to leverage on the recently passed 288 billion naira FCTA 2024 supplementary budget to tackle the challenge. Take a listen.
Good afternoon once again.
We see that a lot of projects are going on in FCT. We're only asking that the money used for those projects can be used, part of it should be used to support the industrial base of the FCT. That is where production thrives. That is where employment will be done. Apart from government employment, if we have a vibrant industrial district, employment will increase and security will increase. What it does is that it takes our young men out of the streets and young women out of the streets and give them valuable means of livelihood. We recommend the deployment of alternative energy sources to ensure uninterrupted electricity, which we know is crucial for economic and industrial productivity. Enhanced security. We recommend the strengthening of security measures within and around the industrial financial districts to restore the confidence of our investing public. Streamlined taxation, introduction of reforms to simplify taxation for businesses, thereby reducing their financial burdens and encouraging investment. It is in this light that we commend the initiatives behind the tax bill, and we urge stakeholders to come together to agree on a tax bill that supports businesses and encourages investment into this economy.
All right, now to our first conversation. We see Nigeria's 2025 budget present a critical juncture for the nation with ambitious goals of economic growth, debt management, and improved social welfare. Well, the government is facing a complex set of challenges at this point with high inflation rate and weakening currency. But let's talk more now to Dr. Tokwe Fashua, Economic Affairs Advisor, that's to the President. It's great to have you on the show. Good afternoon. Compliments of the season.
Hi, good afternoon, Ladi. It's good to be here. Compliments of the season.
Great to have you. So, before we get into the budget now, I'd like to get your view, an assessment of, economic policies so far in 2024. Would you say we've made some, good strides?
Right. Well, the 2024 should be considered as the year of the subsidy. Of the reforms, rather. We have the fuel subsidy removal. We have the reforms on the Naira. We have the reforms, indeed, on monetary policy with regards to the ways and means treatment. And now we have the tax reforms, which are still on the table, So a lot has happened this year, and I believe that 2025 will begin to consolidate on the gains of these reforms. For example, I heard you say that Dangote has reduced the price of its fuel to about 8.99 naira. I've seen that in the newspapers as well today. And you see that the reforms around the fuel subsidy removal is what actually spurred the market, as painful as it is in terms of the increase in the price of fuel. But that itself created a reform of the entire industry, such that we're no longer talking about Nigeria being an entirely import-dependent country regarding fuel, especially premium motor spirits, petrol, and even things like jet fuel, which the airline uses, and so on. Now we're a net exporter already. So you can imagine that whereas there's still hiccups here and there, by the time the industry stabilizes, we're going to be exporting for dollar. So the Dangote industry is there, the refinery. Equally, we have the Port Harcourt refinery coming on board. We have quite a few other modular refineries. That's what reform does. Reforms are always never very easy in the beginning. But if you give it a bit of time, I think that we're going to enjoy a lot of this thing. Now, even on the Naira front, you can begin to see the results already. $42 billion sitting in reserves. Nigeria's trade surpluses have never been this high. 5 trillion the last quarter. Third quarter, second quarter, 6.5 trillion naira. First quarter, 6 trillion naira. And we're talking about an average of about $4 billion in each of those quarters. I think President Tinubu is actually working magic on the economy. So, and of course, if by the time even the revenue sector is kicking in, if you look at the president in his speech on the budget said, look, this year we're able to get about 14 trillion for the federal government only. 14 trillion. That means that if you gross it up, the FRS will release his numbers very soon. It's going to be anything between 25 trillion naira to 30 trillion naira, because the rest has to go to the states and the local government. Federal government gets about 52% and then adds whatever it gets from the government-owned enterprises. So a lot is looking up for Nigeria. I think the worst is over, and I think under President Tinubu, we're going to come out of the woods, and this country is going to do incredibly well. So look out for that.
Okay, well, talking about, President Tinubu's, magic wand so far with the reforms, some will argue that, the people have felt the pinch more, than the political class at this time. So how do we get that magic wand, to relieve some of the pressure, on disposable income right now with inflation still very high? and even though, we're seeing a PMS at 899 from the Dangote refinery, I'm sure Nigerians still want lesser.
Yeah. Okay, so the point becomes, at what point do retailers begin to reprice and reduce their prices because petroleum is going down? So we many times we don't see that, but it is also dependent on the people. The people themselves should fight that war. The FCCPC, Consumer Protection Agency, always moves out to ensure that the people are not being shortchanged too much from some of these retailers and producers and so on. So you're going to see that being priced in. For the 2025 budget, the projection of inflation is 15%. And it's beginning to look like it'll come down. So, but one of the key drivers of inflation in this country is food inflation. So we then look at what's going on in the agri sector. In 2024, from reports I've read, we actually had something like a bumper harvest in 2024. The floods weren't as devastating as they were in 2022. We were able to salvage quite a few things, about 474,000 tons of wheat was harvested, which were not there. Most of that wasn't there the year before. The rice sector, we achieved 100% of our projections, even though we still have about 1 to 2 million tons short from what we need locally. But we basically met almost everything with the local needs, and then we're going to think about export to the region. In almost everything, we're doing well. In cassava, we were able to do more than 30% of what we did last year with capacity for exports. So there's a lot going on. This will also begin to dovetail. But like I said earlier, we can't wait on the federal government alone to bring down our inflation. We can't wait on central bank alone. It may not be a matter for interest rate increases alone. The central bank also acknowledges that. We need to now, there's a behavioral aspect to it. People will usually want to take advantage where they see opportunities to take advantage. People, retailers and co, they will want to keep their prices up because, that means that a lot more money is coming into their pockets. In any economy, no matter the situation, some sectors are benefiting and doing incredibly well. And they will never speak up. Nigeria is a typical example. Sectors that are doing well will never say they are doing well. People that are making money will never say they are making money. It's when they don't make money, you hear, this economy is such a bad economy. So again, there's money in this country. There's transactions going on. Right. There's opportunities going on. There's sectors that are doing well in this country. And however, the people must also stand up once in a while, take the fight back to those retailers and say, you know what? Things are looking better. Why aren't you reducing your prices?
So I guess
it's people are not taking advantage of
the same old
FCCPC alone cannot do it. People have to also step up.
So I guess it's the same old issue, profiteering coming up again. With those retailers you're talking about. But let's get to the budget now. I'd like to get your opinion, on this. According to budget, the government is currently running about 4 budgets. How do you see this? We see the 2023 budget. That was extended to June 2024, then also extended to December 2024. 2023 supplementary budget extended to December 2024. Then we have the 2024 budget. Then we also have the 2024 revised, supplementary budget. So it seems like these are a lot of budgets, running at this time. Would that cause some kind of confusion?
In time, we're going to walk away from some of these, because I think this extension, some of them came about because, this government is less about 18 months in office, even perhaps less. The government was coming in 2023, and there needed to be a transition from one to the other, from one government to the other, and that's, the accounting reasons for that. This is what caused some of this extension. As the government stabilizes into the second year, third year, we're going to do away with some of those extensions, and of course the budget for a single year becomes the budget for a single year. I look forward to that. It's an accounting issue, which can be, we're not spending money from two sources. There's only one source. There's only one consolidated revenue account, only one pot from which everything that belongs to the federation gets shared out. And that's it. Even on however, mind you, some of these are the federal budget that you have mentioned. So it's just an accounting issue. I think as the government settles down properly, we would be able to have a singular budget. Supplementary budgets become necessary when they find out that, look, towards the end of the year, there are things that you need to do, or in the beginning of a year, there are things you need to do that you haven't provided for. So that's also a constitutional provision for a supplementary budget to come at that point in time. But I think that as the reforms on revenue kicks in, and the reforms on expenditure also kick in properly. Like I said before, reforms are not easy. They're not a walk in the park. It's not what you get by a snap of the finger. By the time those ones kick in, and we're getting good enough revenue for much more than what we've been getting before. If you look at the if you look at the budget for 2025 now, and the government expects about 35 trillion in terms of revenue, that's the federal government only. That means that the expectation is for federal revenue, as the case may be, to clock about 60 trillion. And we're talking about 12.5 trillion for last year. We're talking about almost 25 to 30 trillion for this year. We're talking about 60 trillion for next year. And by the time such quantum of revenue comes in, the country will begin to stabilize. And of course, we should also depend on or expect, what they call the advantages of purchasing power parity, because $1 in the US will probably do the work of $10. It's like $10 you bring it to Nigeria. What you need $1 to do in Nigeria, you need $10 to do that in the US. So what it means is that when we're focused on the naira, we can do a whole lot more with the naira, and that's valid. By focusing on products that are manufactured, produced, innovated within Nigeria, we can do a whole lot more with the naira than with a focus on the dollar. So for the 7.9 trillion, this is a budget of hope. It's called a budget of restoration. We focus on security. We focus on prosperity.
Right.
And I think that's very remarkable. I think we're turning the corner, and tomorrow looks very, very good, even today.
Right. I'd really love to see, the names given to these budgets actually, materialize so that we can actually see it happen. We see that restoration, happening. But with a 13 trillion naira deficit proposed for 2025, what steps do you think should be taken now to address, higher cost of, government borrowing, both locally and internationally? I know we've been celebrating having more local borrowing at this time, but that's also expensive.
Well, 13 trillion deficit, yes, well said. But first of all, the deficit you see in part of the budgets, the idea is to fund it maybe partly from foreign, partly from local sources, with an eye to ensure that the government doesn't crowd out the private sector. But a lot of that deficit we intend to fund through PPPs, through a public-private partnership. You can look at some of the projects of the government, some of the major projects like the Lagos-Calabar is being funded, partly through PPP. So if you can ensure that the major projects are funded through the PPP, you rely less on foreign borrowing, which can have the exchange rate factor, or local borrowing, which can crowd out the private sector and the manufacturers, and then of course that reduces the pressure on interest rates in general. So, however, mind you, what I wouldn't stand for is someone to say, oh, we need to be reducing our budget, we need to be balancing our budget. This is not the time. We're not in that kind of country that can begin to balance budgets as at now. We have a growing population, a healthy growth in population, about 2.3, 2.6% growth in population year on year. We were a budding economy, an economy with average age of 16.9 years, meaning that you have a lot of young people that need to be provided for in their education, their health, and what have you. You can see the provision. The government's providing about 2.5 trillion for education this year. About 4.1 trillion is going on infrastructure. We need to invest in infrastructure. 4.9 trillion going on defense, and on education about 3.5 trillion. So we need to continue to see how we can grow our budget, hence the need for deficits from time to time. Because we're a growing economy, we have a whole lot to achieve. And again, mind you, that our budget per capita in dollar terms is still rather low compared to most other countries in the world. We can do a whole lot better. Right. South Africa is budgeting $2,000 per person per year. Nigeria has no business budgeting $150. We should actually be supporting government to do a lot more, as government is trying to do. But mind you, like I said earlier, there's also the PPP factor, the purchasing power parity factor that the government intends to rely on. Right.
Dr. Fashaw, you did mention defense spending, increasing it, for 2025. Looking at 2024, defense spending was, also quite high, considering the issues, but we still got that report, showing that Nigeria spent about 2 trillion on ransom payment. So is it going to be the same type of spending, we saw on defense in 2024? Are we going to see something different, even though the amount of spend is rising? Will there be more something else, a difference, in the way it's being spent, so we can see security improve?
First of all, when I think that the MBS, I'm not sure that report is correct, but we're going to hear from the MBS in days to come. One of the things I challenged when I saw the report yesterday was, is this number increasing or decreasing? So you have assumed that the number is increasing. The point is that was the first time we saw that kind of report. And I'm not sure whether it's a comparative report that other countries also do around. And I believe very strongly that the insecurity situation has improved a lot in this country compared to recent years. Things like Boko Haram has been vanquished, so nobody should wake up that they are dead body for us anymore. Even the insecurity in Northwest is abating, in terms of the... recently we started hearing something called Lakurawa and Co. They sound like a joke. And the military forces have said, look, forget it. These guys are going to be taken out. Even incidences of kidnapping has reduced in this country. So you begin to wonder, the basis for that specificity and say, 2.something trillion was paid. Who reported it? How was it, collated and all of that? So I think we're going to be hoping that we get an update from the Bureau for Statistics on that, whether it's actually their report, but I've also heard that their website was hacked. So nobody knows what's going on. But again, there's one thing I saw in the statistics as well, that 7 out of 10 families reported to the police a murder in their family. I think that's preposterous. I think that's, perhaps, if you like, it's simply incredible. I'm not sure 7 out of 10. That's quite a large number. The security, in fact, the truth is that if you actually do your research, find out that even in Africa, South Africa is considered to be the kidnapping capital of the world. And of course, in South Africa, a lot more of kidnapping goes on in South Africa than goes on in Nigeria, truth be told. So again, I think that it's back to you as a reporter, as a researcher, and to Nigerians as well. Don't just take data, like Benjamin Disraeli said. I was echoed by, this American author. Benjamin Disraeli also said, look, there are 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So what that means simply is that when you get a statistic, you also need to do what they call triangulation, to look at other sources and see whether you can corroborate those statistics yourself. I personally think doing an analysis of different zones of this country, from the northwest to north central to northeast, southwest to south-south to southeast, that insecurity is reducing. You look at the situation in the southeast, it's reducing. It cannot perhaps be eradicated entirely. But this gentleman in Norway or Finland is in police custody as we speak. And people are beginning to step out. Most Mondays are free for people to come out. Once in a while these things happen. There's no country in the world, however, that doesn't have some security challenges. None. Is this the United States we talk about? about 40,000, 47,000 people get killed by gun violence in the U.S., with about 28,000 of those being people getting murdered and so on by different kind of gun violence. So, and however, if you say whatever, Nigerians who want to all go to the U.S. today, but we kind of disparage our own. We're always looking for bad information about Nigeria, anything to put this country down and all of that. So I think we need to step beyond that and understand that this is our country. Nobody will sell this country but we. And so anybody that comes with consistent bad information about Nigeria, we go against him.
Of course, we need to sell our country, better. But regardless of the data, from the MBS about ransom payments, what are you expecting for defense spending in 2025? Would it be what we've seen in 2024? Can we see some improvements in the spend, not just
hopefully,
an increase?
Absolutely. Hopefully, we look forward to an improvement. Like I said, my own opinion, my own analysis, I'm also a researcher. I'm also, used to be a writer, used to be a columnist and so on. From what I've seen, and like they say about journalists, they say journalists are historians in a hurry. Why does that happen? And I want to consider myself partly a journalist too, because I was a columnist for more than 17 years, writing every week and so on. So what that means is that we are always collating information in your articles, in your write-ups every week, or in your daily shows. Very few things will escape you. If someone mentions something that happened 10 years ago, you remember and say, no, I wrote about this, I spoke about this, I had a show about this, and so on. So again, I think that 2023 may not have been, 2024 may not have been a bad year regarding our security situation. I think it'll probably get better, most likely in 2025. Well, of course, we'll continue to appeal to those who are in charge of the security sector to ensure value for money in terms of our security spending so that we can continue to do better on that. But however, also security. The most important thing in security is actually the intelligence. And the intelligence comes from every member of the public. All of these guys disturbing us in Nigeria, they are family members. They are people who know what they're doing. Whether you're talking about in the north, the south, the west, the east, whatever the case may be, we know them. So the more information we avail, the better for all of us, because it affects our business. Sometimes innocent people get killed from the crossfires and some of these things and so on. So again, the issue is to say that Nigeria is ours to save. Nigeria is ours to build. And I think that we're the ones that are going to take our country to the nirvana that we've been hoping for.
Right.
And of course,
we're all
like I said
hoping.
before, for those who disparage Nigeria, they're doing us a disservice. We have every right, no matter who they are, where they're from, to come against them and actually set the record straight. For example, there's this issue of a guy who was jailed for life for stealing a fowl. But what people did not say was that the guy was actually part of an armed robbery group. Now we're getting the information, but that goes far, and people begin to curse Nigeria. Again, if you curse Nigeria, a country that you benefited from, the truth is that you're cursing yourself.
All right, we all pray for a better Nigeria going forward and even beyond, 2025. But thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Dr. Tokwe Fashua, Economic Affairs Advisor to the President. Thank you again, and compliments of the season.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll head straight to the markets, find out if that Santa rally is happening in some markets. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. I have Willie Bong with the details. Great to have you, Will.
A fantastic day today.
The week before Christmas.
This is a penultimate trading day, Friday, before we have, the week for Christmas. And we're already seeing some good things happening in the market.
You don't want to make no losses. A profit.
Yes. And then you make the profit down and you take, you make the stocks pump and take the profit maybe
you take the
week
profit
of Christmas.
Just before Christmas.
Yes, just before Christmas.
So you can have something to
That's
spend.
the right moment to attack the market, right?
I'll keep watching this market.
So let's look at markets now. We're zooming in on major equities that we track in Africa. At intraday, we saw mostly negative sentiments from those stocks, but except in Nigeria, with the NGX was up 0.42%. 100,000 level, if you can tell you the market capitalization is currently at 61 trillion naira. Then look at the JSE in South Africa. But before we go to JSE in South Africa, we can tell you that Aradel and Honeywell and NACO are the ones, pulling the market in positive territory. Then look at Kenya, JSE in South Africa. It was down at intraday 1.22%. I'll look at, EGX in Egypt is also down negative territory at intraday, and Kenya closing the markets. That's yesterday's trading session, Wednesday, in the green. We'll hope to see the market continue to close in the green. But we're talking about equities. We want to drill down on Nigeria's NGX and see what's really driving these stocks and, other sentiments in the market. We did mention that Oando held their AGM, the annual general meeting, on Tuesday, and we saw some good things coming out of that. And we're going to be talking to Vincent Oshoma, securities dealer, Midpoint Capital Limited, is joining us via Zoom. Good afternoon, Vincent. Good to have you on the show.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I was mentioning, as I was talking, I said Oando held its AGM on Tuesday, December the 17th, and we saw some of the results coming out of there, some of the resolutions. We saw the reappointment of some auditors, election of directors, re-election of directors. Are we seeing a corporate governance restructuring or rebranding here? Are we going to see something different in terms of corporate governance from Oando?
Yes, it was an interesting meeting for Oando. You know that they have not had their meeting for a long AGM for some time. And it's quite exciting for the shareholders having such meeting. And also it helps in resolving a lot of issues, talking about the appointment of, ratifying the appointment of some directors, and also talking about the company's position recently in terms of the acquisition of Nigerian Agip Oil and how that has affected their operations, and also the issue of delisting, which has been a burning issue, was also part of what was laid to rest in that meeting, with the MD talking about no plans for them to go private. And I think that's quite reassuring for a lot of shareholders, knowing that they're still going to keep enjoying the benefits, especially considering now that Oando is coming out of the woods after a long time. So shareholders will want to enjoy the benefits that currently are occurring to the company with the acquisition and recent restructuring.
Okay, there was also a financial restructuring. Let me just read some of it there. You said that they hope to simplify debt, and there's also a swap debt for shares, shareholder benefits. Now, that's one of it is that they would accept shares instead of cash to reduce debt and strengthen finances. They also distribute shares or cash value to shareholders based on ownership. So they're looking at a lot of things here in terms of, strengthening their financial status here. How do you see this benefiting shareholders in the long run?
Yeah, I think for the cash dividend, share dividends compared to cash dividend, one of the things that the shareholders were asking for, in fact, that they wanted dividend. And one of the things that was alluded to by the board of directors is the fact that looking at the company from where it was from the beginning of the year, where it is now, you can see that there have been a lot of capital appreciation. So for shareholders that will want to have some homemade dividend, it can be for them to sell some of their shares to get some dividend, because the company has actually helped them in appreciating the value, increasing value for them, for the company. I think that's one of the things that was alluded to. Then there's also a restructuring that was mentioned with respect to a receivable to the company. One of a shareholder trying to transfer to an exchange for changing its debts to equities, and that will result in an increase in the equity because they plan to distribute those shares after there being concluded that transaction. The company plans to distribute those shares to shareholders. I think that's part of the way of rewarding shareholders for their loyalty in terms of distributing some shares, which for those that want to convert those shares to competitive, then they can convert it. I think that's a good thing.
Oh, that's great news to know. But this begs the question. The listing is definitely or obviously out of the way now.
Pardon, I didn't get that.
I mean, Oando did, indicate that they would want to delist from the NGX earlier in the year, but right now, I don't think that is happening, is it?
Yes, according to the MD, they don't plan to delist for now. That's not happening. So I think, like I said, that's quite reassuring because it has been an issue on Oando for years, not just this year, since some time now. And they have kept on postponing the court order meeting. So now that it has been put to rest, I think it's quite reassuring for the shareholder, especially looking at what is currently happening in the company, acquisition of Agip Oil, and also expected improvement in their operations. Like the MD mentioned, Currently, they are currently about $30,000 per barrels per day, and they have plans to increase it to 100,000 barrels per day. Also, there are plans to increase their gas production because they're a major player in the gas sector, subsector. So there are plans to increase their gas production, and that will definitely increase the fortune of the make things better. So shareholders would like to share in these things, not the company going private after they have been with the company for years. I think it's a good one for all shareholders, and also a good one for the market because it's definitely going to improve the market cap balance.
Okay, now let's just take a look at the burning question, the burning topic here, which is the budget presentation yesterday, 2025 budget. And looking at the sectors that were prioritized in that budget, how would investors, in your opinion, position to take advantage, especially as we enter into the new year?
Yeah, looking at the budget, you can see that the major sector, the number one, in terms of the chunk of the, in terms of the size of the budget, the security sector is taking a huge chunk of the budget, and that we all know the reason for that, the current security challenges, both in the north and southern parts of the country. I think is a good thing, and it also have an impact in the overall economy, because we look at the current inflation figure. The major driver of inflation is food inflation, and it's kind of attribute that to the challenges in which is especially the food basket of the country. So being able to solve the security challenges in the have impact on both the especially inflation figures. And also we now also talk of infrastructure, which is also a good thing. You know that the growth in infrastructure budget definitely will affect companies that are in the industrial goods sector, and that's a good one. Definitely should expect that to impact companies in the cement sector. I'm also talking about the X sector. It's also taking a major part of the budget. I think looking at companies in the pharmaceutical sector, that's a good one for them. I think we expect these to actually impact the economic growth. But like most analysts, we agree that it is one thing for the government to craft a very good budget, looking at the figures. It's another thing for us to also talk about the implementation, because we sometimes look at this budget and we don't really see implementation to actually see the impact. Because one thing people always say is that after the budget have been implemented, we want to actually see a review to know to what extent and what are the sectors that are really being impacted. That's very important.
Okay, just so very quickly before I let you go, you talked about the security. What stocks can investors, key into here to be able to benefit from that sector? Because looking at the NGX, we don't think there's any stock that, relates to that.
Sorry, I didn't get that, sorry.
What stocks in the securities department or sector can investors key into to benefit from, that sector, from that budget?
Like I mentioned, the industrial goods sector, talking about companies in the cement subsector, I think that's because the infrastructure project, definitely, especially with the minister talking about using cement for most of the road project, I think that is a good one for companies that are in that space. Then I also mentioned the pharmaceutical. We have a lot of companies in the pharmaceutical sector. I think that's also the companies that people can also look at. Then another good thing that I also mentioned, just mentioned, is the fact that the president mentioned targeting 15% inflation. Though a lot of persons will say it's a far out because of we are currently at 34.6 and you're talking about 15%. But I think that would be a good one if you're able to make some appreciable progress in terms of reducing the inflation, and that would be good for our market.
Thank you so much, Vincent Oshoma, securities dealer, Midpoint Capital. Just hope that the 15% inflation target is not wishful thinking, but they're going to put policies and take action to be able to realize that. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So look at the Middle East. We see major stocks were in the red, mostly in the red, 0.1. Except for Dubai, we see 0.11% for Dubai. Abu Dhabi down 0.2%. Let's look at Saudi Arabia and the Tadawul, that's Saudi Arabia, 0.75%, and Qatari index was 1.13% down. Also, Asia markets was, it was pretty, much bloody for them because, we saw that the Fed, cut interest rate at 0.25% as expected, but told investors that they may not be having as many cuts in the future, and that really dampened market sentiment. And you saw some stocks nosediving as a result of that, plunging. I'm sure Laddies was also plunging with that conversation. It was a plunging with it.
Some are asking maybe investors were overreacting.
I don't think they were overreacting. I guess they've been pampered with all the cuts coming in,
right?
And they were
Cut
expecting too much. Would you say it's an entitlement thing now that they're expecting the markets to just respond to their needs?
If they will keep cutting in 2025. But that's a damper there. But the Jerome Powell also said that if inflation continues, going towards their target, then they might keep cutting.
Yes, but I think maybe some people want inflation to keep going up, and they just want that to keep cutting the rate.
Even if it goes up,
just keep cutting the rate.
Nah, it doesn't work that way. Thank you so much, Will, there for giving us the details of what's playing out in those markets. Well, let's get a check on Europe now. See, Germany's ailing economy and that of 8 other European countries has come under scrutiny of the European Union, and Brussels fears these member states, the economic woes could hurt the entire bloc. Well, join us with more now. We have DW correspondent Chiponda Jimbelu. Chiponda, tell us more about this. There's so much fear there.
Thanks for having me. Well, Laddie, the European Commission has an early warning system for identifying countries whose economies could potentially destabilize the whole bloc's economic system. And that is the Alert Mechanism Report. And in the 2025 edition, the EU has identified Germany as one of 9 countries that experienced what it calls macroeconomic imbalances this year. Now, other major European economies on that list include Italy, the Netherlands, and Sweden. Brussels looks for warning signs of economic issues from various macroeconomic indicators, including unemployment rates, debt levels, credit flows, and property prices. And they help Brussels identify potential problems, such as a high current account deficit for a country or explosive real estate prices that would potentially spill over and have a negative impact on other EU member states.
So what does this mean for other countries?
Well, the countries named in the report will have to undergo an in-depth analysis of their economies in the first half of 2025. And that means that we will hear more about the 9 countries that are named, and the EU Commission will also assess possible policy needs. Now, in the current report, Brussels points out that inflation remains a challenge in some EU states, despite the fact that it is now closer to the EU's target inflation of 2%, services inflation remains elevated. And that is, of course, especially the case here in Germany, where energy prices continue to influence inflation. Now, Brussels also says that the global economic landscape is complicated. And while the report doesn't mention incoming US President Donald Trump or the prospect of tariffs or trade restrictions, it does say that the potential economic disruptions could pose significant challenges. And there, of course, Germany, which is the EU's biggest economy, accounting for just under 25% of the bloc's GDP, is also extremely vulnerable. That is, of course, largely due to its export-dependent economy.
All right, turning to the markets now. What can we expect today?
Laddie, European markets are expected to trade lower today, and that comes after stocks slipped in Asia. Of course, they were taking cues from a sell-off on Wall Street on Wednesday. Now, after cutting interest rates by 0.25%, as was expected, the US Federal Reserve cautioned it would temper the pace of rate cuts next year. And the Bank of Japan decided to hold borrowing rates in its decision today. Now, the hawkish moves by monetary policymakers have soured sentiment, and European markets are expected to trade 1% lower or more today. And with not much trading, of course, expected towards the end of the year, it will be interesting to watch how traders position their portfolios for 2025. The latest policy decisions from the US Fed and the Bank of Japan have underscored the challenge that the global economy may face as US President-elect Donald Trump moves back into the White House next year.
All right, Chip, thank you for the details. All right, let's get to all the stories now. A Chinese company called Kalida, known for making fabrics and home textiles, is teaming up with the Suez Canal Economic Zone for a massive $30 million project. This huge factory will be built on a massive 92,000 square meters of land and is expected to create about 1,000 jobs for Egyptians. Well, that's not all. Khalida isn't the only one investing in the SC zone. A Turkish company called Saray Bisküvi is also setting up a food manufacturing plant there. Together, these two projects are worth about $38 million. And the best part now, most of Khalida's products, like those beautiful fabrics and cozy home textiles, will be shipped to Europe and the United States. So you might be seeing some of their creations in stores near you. All right, so our next conversation, let's talk about noodles now. You know, that staple food we all love. Lately, the price of a carton of Indomie has skyrocketed, a whopping 40% increase. That's a big deal, especially when food prices in general are already through, the roof at this time. Now you think that such a price hike would make people eat less noodles. But surprisingly, that's not the case. Let's hear more now from Rosemary Mahira. Great to have you, Rosemary. So we see the price of noodles soaring, but food inflation, while high, isn't increasing as quickly. What do you think is happening here? Any specific, factor driving up the price of noodles even more than other foods?
Good afternoon, Ladi. Thank you for having me. So, the price of noodles is a function of the cost of production, just like any other commodity. Yes. So, such the ingredients that go into the production of noodles but are not limited to wheat, palm oil, and seasoning. And recently, we've seen the price of wheat being stable, as well as the price of seasoning. But palm oil, between May of this year to recent times, have increased by over 110%. So it has increased from 5,000 naira for a 5-liter keg to about 11 to 11,500 naira for the same quantity of palm oil. And the reasons for the increase in the price of palm oil is not far-fetched, because palm oil is used in the production of margarine, is used in the production of detergents and noodles. So it has a wide variety of uses, so which contributes to the increase in its demand. And palm oil as well, when well refined, is a good substitute for vegetable oil. And recently, we've seen the price of vegetable oil skyrocket. I think a 5-liter keg of vegetable oil is about 25,000 naira. So with this, we see consumers switching demand to palm oil, which is a close substitute. And another reason for the increase in the price of noodles is change in demographic that has resulted in a change in consumption patterns. So if we take a sample of 100 Nigerians, I would put them in a room. About 60 of them are below the age of 30, and they consume noodles most times. 5% of these people are between the ages of 60 to 65, and they will consume rice before they consume noodles. So they mostly consume rice. So if you look at the remaining 35, at best, half of them consume noodles while half consumes rice. So due to change in demographic trends, we see youthful population in Nigeria demanding more for noodles compared to other staple foods. And if you draw up the indifference curve of a consumer who is indifferent between rice and noodles, you see that they usually go for the commodity that will give them more utility, that's more value for each unit of currency spent instead of premium. So affordability compared to other staple foods like rice and yam also plays a role in the increase in the price, because it also influences demand as well. So these are some of the reasons why we've seen the price of noodles increase in recent time. But looking at the price increase only is yesterday's news. So let's take it a step further and look at the price outlook for noodles. So going forward, we expect the price of this commodity to decline because of easing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. So this will allow more wheat to be exported, so there will be increase in global supply, which will ultimately beat down the price. And recently, we've seen the naira appreciate against other currencies. So, and this is a trend that we expect to persist. This will help us to enjoy the benefits of increasing global supply of wheat and its declining prices as well. And domestically, cassava production will also increase, because some manufacturers substitute wheat for cassava. So there are different initiatives that have been put in place, like the Presidential Cassava Initiative, which will help to increase cassava production and reduce the price domestically.
Right.
So all this will help us see a reduction in the price of ingredients that go into noodle production, and subsequently the reduction in the price of noodles.
All right, Rosemary, just promise me that I'll be able to afford all the foods I want to eat this Christmas. Well, thank you so much. Always great having your perspective. That was Rosemary Ahira, analyst at Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get a quick check on the market now. I'm talking about the crypto space. Let's see what's happening. It's like it's red, on the streets. If you look at Coin360, it's really bloody there in the crypto street. And I guess it's expected, Christmas is next week. So I want to believe it's okay, for investors to actually, take some profit off the table so you can have a big, bumper, Christmas dinner and lunch and all of that and have fun with your family. But let's look at some top headlines in the market. Now we see Jerome Powell there saying that the Fed cannot hold Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve Chair said, that was yesterday, that the U.S. Central Bank has no desire to be involved in any government effort to stockpile large amounts of Bitcoin. It says they're not allowed to own Bitcoin. So maybe that might be contributing to the downtrend we see for Bitcoin. Then we see El Salvador, they're streamlining their Bitcoin law so they can get significant financial and economic support from the IMF. El Salvador, they've been buying a lot of Bitcoin since 2024 and I think some part of 2023. So we see some laws there. They're going to change that on how the public sector can actually hold Bitcoin and also citizens in the country. Let's bring in Chimezie Chuta now to bring us up to speed. Great to have you, Chimezie. So we're seeing the market now having a major, quite a pullback from $108,000 for Bitcoin, and it seems the bears are the ones having fun right now with this dip. But altcoins don't seem to be doing anything, even when Bitcoin got to $108,000, and now altcoins are pulling back, with this pullback with Bitcoin.
Yeah, thank you, Ladi. It's always a pleasure to join you on the show. Yeah, it's all Bitcoin all the way. The oil coins have been lying on the side because massive institutional investment is pouring into build Bitcoin, and not much is happening in the retail sector. I mean, retail money is not coming in. The little one that is there that is coming in at all is circulating within the main tokens that are being issued on Solana 24 hours a day. So we are likely going to wait a little bit longer for altcoin rally in this market cycle.
Or could it be possible that there might not be an altcoin season and all attention will just continue going to Bitcoin?
Well, I don't want to wish that for the market because altcoin actually represents a major driver of the market, even though the market share right now is still very low compared to Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin is still about 57% dominant and is still pretty high. We need to see Bitcoin lose up to 10% of that dominance before we can see serious altcoin rally. But that being said, we have to understand that the emergence or the re-entry of President Trump has a lot of potential for the altcoin market. The current SEC posture towards altcoins, Ethereum, and other altcoins that are in the market suggests that they are not safe for institutionals to invest because they are pertain to be securities. Okay, but one is hoping that the moment Donald Trump will take over the helms of office at the White House, then we might see a different approach from the SEC, and that will definitely allow institutions to look in the direction of other alts in terms of investing in them also for their entities.
All right, we'll keep watching to see if that alt season actually comes, at some point. Thank you so much. That was Chimezie Chuta as the chairman of the National Blockchain Policy Steering Committee. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
All right, so there you have it. That's how most of the markets we track looking today. We'll give you a summary of what's playing out tomorrow. It's the week before Christmas. Definitely, I'm sure investors that have been able to make one or two profits there would be smiling into next week. And hopefully, we'll keep tracking to give you tips on where to go in this market and what's driving sentiment. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. From me and the team right here at Channels HQ, it's bye for now.